illusion that you're climbing a little bit. Good day, folks. How are you? It's good to see you again. Thought today we'd take the opportunity, there's not a whole lot going on, to practice, or at least show you folks a little on how to perform a soft field takeoff, primarily for the private pilot certificate, but it is also performed in the commercial pilot check ride as well. So multiple check rides, it's required. As we sit here in the run-up area of the Vero Beach Airport, we would sit here and discuss exactly why the soft field landing is performed and how to properly perform it, because when you actually get out onto the runway, there's not a whole lot of time to discuss the proper technique and such. So what you're going to do is, before you even approach the runway, normally this would actually be done at a soft field, obviously, runway, meaning it's made up of something other than a hard concrete or a pavement, so it could be mud, soil, grass, anything of that sort. And you would actually want to use the soft field takeoff technique also during taxiing also, and the whole point is to make sure you are doing everything within your power to keep all the weight off of the nose gear as possible. You don't want any weight on that nose gear, otherwise you risk possibly having that nose gear dig into the ground, and possibly, I mean, it would slow you down, it could possibly flip you over, whatever the case may be. You don't want to have any weight on the nose gear. So from the get-go, if you hear the word soft field from the examiner or check airman, or whether you're just practicing it, it doesn't matter if you're on pavement or on soil or grass, you want to take the yoke, the control, whatever aircraft you're flying, today we're flying the Piper Cherokee, and pull it all the way aft, full aft position. And you want to keep it there throughout the entire taxi portion of the flight, if he's mentioning soft field taxi, and during the takeoff as well. The next thing you're going to want to add is mid-range flaps. Now in the Piper Cherokee, we use 25 degrees of flaps. Cessna, you'll probably use somewhere around 20 degrees. It depends on what aircraft you're using, but you want mid-range. In the Cessna, you could also use 10 degrees. So we have 25 degrees of flaps. We have full aft back pressure on the yoke. And before we even get moving, we want to have these control inputs added to the aircraft. In an ideal scenario, when we get taxiing, we wouldn't stop at all. We would just make if we were using a CTAF, a Common Traffic Advisory Frequency at a non-towered airport, we would announce our position, our intentions, take the runway, no stopping. You don't want to use any brakes, so minimal braking as possible, to keep the weight off the nose gear. At a towered airport, that can be a little difficult just due to the fact that you can't just go and do whatever you would like at that point. You need to actually ask for permission, and for instance, we just had a jet land in front of us, so we would have had to wait at the end of the runway. But we're going to try to time it here to where we don't actually need to stop, and we'll just continue across that hold short line, get permission to take off, of course, obviously, before we get there, and go ahead and perform the maneuver. So once again, full aft back pressure, 25 degrees of flaps, the Piper Cherokee.
And remain this frequency.
And if there is any, which today there is a pretty good crosswind, you need to add your proper crosswind corrections also during the entire maneuver. So here we go.
Bravo Golf permitted. Just turn left once you get onto Charlie 4. Turn left.
I have the tower frequency tuned in, which I'm sure you can hear in the background. I'm going to set my transponder to the proper mode. I have all my lights, my fuel pumps, and we're good to go. Full aft back pressure. My trim is in the proper range, and we're going to get going.
Afternoon Vero Tower, touch at 823, GPS 29 left.
Exit at 823, Vero Beach Tower. Good afternoon, runway 29 left, clear to land.
Clear to land, 29 left, touch at 823.
And for Beach Tower, Cherokee 901 to 74, Mike ready for takeoff, 29 left.
Cherokee 90174, Mike, Vero Beach Tower, runway 29 left, clear for takeoff, make a left traffic.
Clear for takeoff, 29 left, and left traffic, 74 Mike. Okay, so we fortunately have the proper timing here to where we don't actually need to stop. We're not going to use any braking as we take the runway here. Full aft back pressure, 25 degrees of flaps. And we're going to kind of cut the runway here a little bit. We're going to take it a little around the corner so we do not have to brake. Full aft back pressure. And as we accelerate here, we're going to add full power without stopping. The nose is going to start to come off of the pavement just slightly, almost as if you're doing a wheelie. That's what you want. You want to keep that nose gear off as long as you can. And we're actually going to rotate prematurely here. You're actually below your normal rotate speed, and for that reason, you're going to have to keep it in ground effect the entire time until you reach your VX. In this case, I'm going to use 63 knots. There's 63, and as we start climbing here, I'm going to keep it at 63 until I reach a proper altitude to where I can take out my first notch of flaps. There's my first notch, and I'm down to 10 degrees. And my second notch of flaps, and at this point I can go back to VX or VY, whichever is appropriate. I'll put my nose down a little and accelerate to VY. Now, as you can tell, that happens all pretty quickly.
Number 2 Bravo Golf, finish the building ahead and to your right with the copper-colored roof, the jets are...
As soon as you get onto the runway, everything happens very rapidly. The nose starts to come off the ground because you have all full aft back pressure. You're adding throttle,
And November 2 Bravo,
which allows much more airflow to go over the tail surface, pushing the tail down even more. And a lot of people are surprised on what happens initially as that nose starts to come up, and as I mentioned, it's almost like you're doing a wheelie.
I was just correct.
That's the proper technique, and that's what you want down the entire runway as you're rolling to take off.
Yeah, Falcon 2 Bravo Golf,
Clear left.
about that. They only stay in the...
After you get off the ground, because you did rotate a little prematurely, in terms of you're actually getting off the ground earlier than you normally would, you do need to lower the nose and make sure that the aircraft stays in ground effect. The first time you do it, it may seem a little overwhelming, but after I've found most people find the soft field takeoff to be the most entertaining, the most fun, because there is a lot going on in that short amount of time. A lot of practice. I'd say just a few times out on the runway with your certified flight instructor, and you'll have soft field landings down. Not a problem. You'll be ready for your check ride in no time. Thanks for joining me today. See you soon.
Clear Beach Tower, 720 mile Alpha, BOR runway 29 left, below approach.